Hi, this is acting teacher Michael Bean, and this is your lesson from myfreeactingclass.com for Monday, February the 7th. Right now, these lessons happen from 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So today, we're going to be going over a monologue and a short script and breaking them down using the tool that I've been talking about in lessons recently, which is story, style, relationships, changes, wants, and going through some of the quick answers on that. I've got one of the students today who has volunteered to be a guinea pig and do some practice with us. And so hopefully that will help illustrate it. We'll do that with a short monologue, and then I will break down a scene from the show Riverdale and talk a little bit about style and that kind of thing when we get to that. That one, I think I'll just go over with you. Then we're going to quickly review some kind of self-tape basics. And I'm going to show you a clip of a self-tape submitted by another student who also is here with us today. And so he can talk about that, and we can kind of talk about that as we go. Now, I had a meeting with my talent agent just a couple of days ago, and I was asking her, are there trends that you've seen? Now, this is something that talent agents, right? Remember that sort of progression that I've talked about in class so many times before, where the producers are in charge of the money, the directors are in charge of the story, the casting directors are in charge of the audition, so they're the gatekeeper, they're the one who decides who gets to audition. The talent agents are in charge of marketing the actors. They're basically the necessary go-between the many, many, many actors and the very, very few casting directors. Right? Casting directors do not talk directly to actors. They only go through the talent agents. Sort of like, if there's one dentist in town, sure, maybe you call them directly, but if there are a million dentists in town, right? If there's so many actors, you're like, I don't know, I've got to call somebody who knows them. It's not a perfect analogy, but there's like that. The talent agent is a marketing professional, and a business manager whose business is promoting actors. That's their deal. And then you've got the actors who are responsible for themselves. So I spoke to a talent agent and I was like, okay, so you've seen thousands of these self-tapes now over the last year and a half. What kind of trends seem to be emerging? What kind of trends are you noticing in terms of what the casting directors are bringing in, what they're asking for? And she said that casting directors in general, and this reflects what I've heard from the few who I've talked to directly, seem to be bringing in between 5 and 10 times as many people as they were pre-pandemic. So before the pandemic, they would see 10 people in person. That means now they're seeing 50 to 100 tapes. Right? So that's coming from somebody who's been dealing with thousands of these over the last year and a half. So it's not perfect, but it is probably about as reliable as information gets with something like this, because there isn't anybody who's sort of doing research and putting it all together and saying like, those are the definite numbers. The people who on the back end are very secretive about that. But 5 to 10 times. And interestingly, that's approximately what I spoke to somebody who worked in an LA-based casting office a couple of years ago, and she said that was how many people they saw. She's like, yeah, we see about 100 people in person, about 50 tapes. And so I think that's interesting that with the advent of self-tapes, it means that Vancouver offices are now seeing about as many actors as LA offices used to. Right, so that means that we're getting much more exposure, but you're also seeing much more competition. Now, the other thing that she said as an emerging trend is that, and this I find really makes me hopeful, which is that the trend seems to be, her words, in fact, maybe I will just read you her words so that I'm not too badly paraphrasing it. She said, the trend seems to be diversity and a little quirkier than they used to be. They seem to want more characters, less Barbie and Ken, and more, how is this person unique and different? Unique is the trend of the day. More unique is good instead of fitting in a box. Now, that's great for everybody, right? It means that of course, if they're seeing 100 people, they don't want to see 100 that are kind of the same. They don't even want to see 50 that are kind of the same. They want some to see 100 that are all really unique and personal and different. Now, this is a professional talent agent who is skewed because mostly she's seeing, like very pretty people who are her clients saying, yeah, so quirky and different, which like might mean like that much more quirky and different, or it might mean that much more quirky and different. That we don't know for sure. We know that her experience is they're asking for more quirky and different. The important thing there, I think, is that for actors, if you're doing a self-tape, put yourself in it, right? Like they're seeing 100 people, right? Like unless you hurt yourself or them, if it's not what they're looking for, they literally will not remember you exist. But if you can show who you are and your technical competence, I think that makes it more likely that when something is appropriate, they're like, oh yeah, that person who showed us who they were, who had some personality. Okay, I know what we're dealing with here. So that's my pitch for that. And that's a piece of conversation that emerged this week that I thought was interesting for Michael Bean. Now, let's take a quick look at this monologue. I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to get Christina to read it. So Christina, if you want to unmute yourself, this is something that I helped an actor prepare. It's from a very old movie. She was assigned this by the folks who were doing this audition for the program that she wants to enter. And it's from the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? It's a little piece of monologue. Here we go. So Christina, whenever you're ready.
Sorry, I'm just zooming in here.
Can you see it okay?
Yeah, I can. There's some words that I like cut out, but like after school, is that, what is the word after school? Handle
After
school.
That's worse than school. You mean here?
Okay. I know the one like on the top is like on the right on the right hand side. It's like be expected to handle school something
On a day like today.
On a day like today. Okay.
Here, let me do this. Does it help?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay.
Sorry, my phone. Okay. They bought it. Incredible. One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second. How could I possibly expect it to handle school on a day like today? This is my 9th sick day like this semester. It's getting pretty tough coming up with these new illnesses. If I go for 10, I'm probably going to have to barf up a lung. So I better make this one count. The key to faking out the parents is clammy hands. It's a good non-specific symptom. I'm a big believer in it. A lot of people will tell you that a phony fever is a deadlock, but you get a nervous mother and you could wind up a doctor's office. That's worse than school. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Okay, perfect. Now, I didn't give Christina time to prepare this. We're going to look at it through the lens of story, style, relationships, changes, and want. And so the listening to Christina do it, like she's doing her best with material that's brand new, just make it sound like this is her talking. And that's the foundation for any film and TV acting, right? Is you go in, and if it doesn't sound like a person really talking, then it doesn't matter how awesome and expressive it is, because they're not going to be able to hire you. And of course, that's style dependent. Somebody really talking in like a little kid Nickelodeon TV show is going to be different from somebody talking in Game of Thrones, but it's still just like, okay, we believe this is a person in the place doing the thing. So that's where style is important, understanding what kind of show you're auditioning for, etc. One of the things that I looked at when I worked this with a client this week, and where are we? Okay, and so looks like, let me make this bigger for y'all so that folks at home can see it even if they're on little computers. So if we look at story, she's pretending to be sick to have a fun day off. She's telling the audience how to pretend to be sick. The actor I was working with was 12 or 13. So we were putting it in her words. Style, monologue, comedy, right? Keeping it simple. These are answering these questions, doesn't have to be a whole essay. She's a close friend who's nervous about faking sick. All right, and so I encouraged her again to put herself in it. I was like, they're not auditioning you for Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's a really old movie. They're just using this text, so make sure that you're putting yourself in it. The changes, we chose to break up the text, and the want is don't be so nervous. Like, come on, you can do it. And we tried a couple of things out loud until one landed on her. Particularly when we get into the changes, I think that you'll hear an immediate difference when I get Christina to read this one. because I'm going to get her to read the sort of little phrases that I came up with this client of mine to help anchor the different changes in it, just basically the different thoughts, the different tactics. It doesn't really matter what you call them. The point is that a good story is going to change, right? It's got a beginning, a middle, and end. It starts in one place and it goes somewhere else. There's all sorts of different things happening at once. And particularly with a monologue, if an actor is memorizing a chunk of text, there's this tendency to just kind of get through it all and to not take pauses in between and to go through it all on the same level, and everything kind of sounds the same, so that even if it sounds like a real person, there aren't really pauses after the periods, and it all is kind of on one emotional level. It's very, very normal. This isn't just like Christina reading this for the first time. I've seen this in actors who've spent days, or a week or weeks preparing a monologue. They'll come in and make a really bold, clear choice and stay there for the entire monologue. It's like, yeah, that was a really good, interesting, like alive, right for you choice. And then it got really boring because we just saw it over and over and over again. Especially in a medium where you are taping it and sending it to people, and they might only watch 10 seconds. Bringing in those changes is probably a really good idea. So the goal here is to bring out more of the person's personality, and also to find a more interesting story by bringing in the layers in a way that sort of feels real and animates the story a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to this one, and you can see what I did with my client here. And so this first one, Christina, just say this. This is the way that we chose to frame it in our coaching session. I honestly don't think there's a like, here's the perfect way to make these thoughts. You do it based on what makes you feel, and you keep it pretty simple. So just say this.
I'm surprised.
Good. Try, no way.
No way.
Try, I can't believe that worked.
I can't believe that worked.
Good. Yeah, good. Give me that one. Say, I can't believe that worked.
I can't believe that worked.
And now say just this first bit.
They bought it. Incredible. One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second.
Good. And then remember, that even we don't want a big pause, but this is your period is the end of a sentence, a new thought. And so if you don't take them out and you don't give that little tiny pause there, then what happens is you start to sound like a run-on sentence, and it sounds like an actor doing a monologue. So just one more time, just give me that first line.
They bought it. Incredible. One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second. Sorry.
Good. And give me just this.
It's too nice outside.
Good. Say it is way too nice outside.
It is way too nice outside.
Good. Now say this next line like you said that.
How could I possibly expect it to handle school on a day like today?
Good. And can you feel yourself going back to your initial interpretation of it? Say, it is way too nice outside, and just go further with it. Exaggerate it a little bit if you have to find the change.
Okay. It is way too nice outside.
Good. And say the line like that. That's perfect. Like that.
How could I possibly expect it to handle school?
Good. And remember, you're not in theater. You're not projecting. And so what happened was you said, it's way too nice outside. And then you went back to performing it, and that's going to lose us, right? So just say it like you said. It is way too nice outside.
It is way too nice outside.
Good. Now say the line like you said that.
How could I possibly expect it to handle school on a day like today?
Okay, good. And say just this.
Maybe this is the last time.
Say, I don't know how long this is going to work.
I don't know how long this is going to work.
Now say the line like you said that.
This is my 9th day this semester. It's getting pretty tough coming up with
Remember
these
the
illnesses.
periods, Christina. If you skip them, then you sound like an actor reading a monologue. Again?
This is my 9th sick day this semester. It's getting pretty tough coming up with these illnesses. If I go for 10, I'm probably going to have to barf up a lung. So I better make this one count.
Good. And then lean in, and enjoy yourself and say, here's the secret.
Oh, here's the secret.
Good. Try, like, I'm an expert at this.
I'm an expert at this.
Like, and if you were talking to a friend and like sort of giving them advice, what would the Christina version of it be?
Be like, I'm good at this.
I'm good at this. Good. So just say that. Say, I'm good at this.
Okay. For the here's the secret one.
Yes.
The key to faking out the parents.
No, just say, I'm good at this.
I'm good at this.
Good. Now say it like you said that. Give me the key to faking out, right? Like, let me hear it in your voice that I'm good at this.
The key to faking our parents is clammy hands. It's a good non-specific symptom. I'm a big believer in it. A lot of people tell you that a phony fever is a deadlock, but you get a nervous mother, and you can wind up in a doctor's office. And you could wind up in a doctor's office. That's worse than school.
Good. And say, don't be boring.
Don't be boring.
Good. Now say the line like you said that.
Life moves pretty fast, and if you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Christina, thank you so much for being brave. I know I can see you making the like, ooh, face, because being imperfect sucks. So I just want to reflect to you and also to everybody watching that this is Christina, like being brave and doing a thing with no practice. So like, yeah, as other students are giving her the like, cheer hands. So let's use the same thing and just quickly look at a script from Riverdale. We're not going to act this one out because I think you've sort of got the shape of it now. Or at least you've got the bare bones. So this is a August 2020 audition from Riverdale. Jessica, female, 20s, open ethnicity, a train wrecky hipster. Jessica's Jughead's live-in girlfriend. Jessica makes no secret of the fact she's done with their relationship. So you can see she's not as important to him as the book he's not writing. Recurring guest star. Details. This you would get if you were auditioning for the role. This is something that I coached somebody on, so that's why I have access to it. So, interior basement apartment day. Jughead buries his head in his hands, then screams out his frustration, loud and primal. His neighbor pounds on the wall. Bam, bam, bam. Jessica, OS. Now, this means that when they're shooting it, she's going to be off screen. But if you're auditioning for Jessica, you do not do any of your performance off screen. What the hell, Jones? Jughead turns to see his train wrecky hipster girlfriend, Jessica 20, emerge from the bedroom. Why are you yelling like a maniac? Jughead ignores her, already dialing a number in his cell. Great, and now you're ignoring me. Jess, please, I'm calling my backing phone. Damn, it's me. Can we talk? So talk to your agent, but not your girlfriend. Awesome. Italics, right? Italics. Yeah, so those are at least the writer trying to give you clues at what they're saying, what they're trying to convey. Jughead grabs his satchel on his way out the door. Off Jessica, disbelief at Jughead's behavior. Now it doesn't say this in the script, so sometimes there'll be a big mark that says end, but you can see that this is scene 31 and this is scene 34. And so my opinion is that if you were taping this, you would end, basically cut, and then tape the other one as a second scene. And that's what we did for this. A lot of the time they'll have a start mark and an end mark, and then sometimes they'll just do it like this. If it was continued, there would usually be a little arrow scratched through here, and the word continued, or sometimes just a little arrow sort of drawing from here straight down. Jughead, Jess, did you see this? Jess comes out of the bedroom with a suitcase. What the hell's going on? I'm going to stay with Haley until I find my own place. Why? This isn't working anymore. Working for a long, long time. Also, literal debt collectors are pounding on the door. Wait, what? Right? Italics again? When? Today, after you blew me off to meet your agent. Don't do this right now. Please, Jess, I don't know what. Again, italics, you need Jones, but I'm definitely not it. Italics. Good luck with your book. The only thing you care about. She waits for a response. Doesn't get one then. Well, at least you don't deny it. Jessica takes her suitcase and goes, while Jughead just stands there in shock as everything falls apart around him. Okay, so we read it, we get the story. I want to quickly show you the worksheet that I put together. Okay, so story questions. Pretty straightforward, right? Who, what, when, where, why, how, descriptive words for your characters. If I've seen this be really, really useful, particularly for auditions. Write train wreck hipstery girlfriend. Maybe that's enough for you. And you're like, oh yeah, when I feed my imagination that's what they gave me in the breakdown. That really does it for me. But maybe you need to go, well, if I'm Jessica, I don't think of myself as a train wreck hipster. So how do I think of myself? Well, I think of myself as like cool and intellectual, and I describe myself in a way that helps me play the character. It can be a useful exercise to do with the other characters as well. Moment before means right before what's written in the script, and you just decide that so that you're kind of coming in hot with something. Moment after, so that you continue acting, even if you are going to cut, just having the intention to do a thing, or sometimes just going off to do it, and so that then when you're editing later, you can kind of cut, and it seems like the character's in the middle of life, the story from your perspective, right? All of these are just questions that are ways of thinking about story. Like, have you thought about the story? Style, episodic, pilot, feature, movie of the week, etc. Relationships, strong feelings or opinions about people, objects, and events. And I don't mean every object. Does she need an opinion about like every single thing in the script? Does she need an opinion about her outfit, and the door? And I don't think so. In fact, I think that if you make too many choices like that, you're going to clutter it up. What you're going for is, what are the ones that stand out to you emotionally that help you tell the story you want to tell? How your feelings and opinions change, how the story changes. It's often called arc or beats. Really, these are just different ways of describing, like, does it change, right? Is there an arc? Does it change from beginning to end? Even if it's that kind of arc or that kind of arc, as long as it changes. And beats are those choice points where it changes in some way. And if you want to get really granular, you can have a beat, or that little micro change with every line of dialogue. You can find them inside individual lines of dialogue if that's your practice. The point is just that you're looking for change, you're inviting that in. Then what does your character most want? And what are you trying to get the other person to do or feel so you get it? All right, so if we were going to look at the Riverdale scene with that in mind, maybe we take a quick look at the style. Thankfully, with a film and TV script, you've got the real world to use for all of your research. You can go to imdb.com and go, okay, I'm just going to look up Riverdale. Boom, there it is. Crime, drama, mystery. We could watch a little piece of the trailer. And I think that's always a great idea. If you're auditioning for something that is existing, you watch a little snippet of the trailer. Otherwise, the breakdown will tell you who the director is, and you can just look up the last couple of things the director did on IMDb, enter the director's name, go onto YouTube, watch the first 1 minute of the last couple of projects. That'll often give you a sense of style that, whatever, crime, mystery, drama, that is sort of generic. And what we want is like the Riverdale flavor of that, just to kind of go in feeding that to your system. It's a good idea to look at that if you're prepping this. And if we go back to that worksheet, okay, Jugheads, primal scream, banging, banging, all of this. We go down here. I better make all of this larger for you all. Okay, story. And so if you're playing Jess, my advice is always to put story in first person. So my boyfriend cares more about his book than he does about me. Our relationship sucks right now. I break up with him. Style, drama, crime, etc. Riverdale. And I just put these notes here to, when I looked at the script, I glanced at it, I was like, well, maybe these are the things that are like the most alive for me, right? So if I'm prepping Jessica, then Jughead, I'm like, Jughead's a loser. The agent book is like jealous, like he's having an affair, right? So relationships are strong feeling or opinion. The stronger the feeling or opinion, the more as Jess, in playing the scene, I'm like, I can find that like, jealous or highly competitive towards the book. Like, how come you're paying attention to the agent, the book, and not to me? Maybe the more fight I find in that, sure. That's only one of the many choices you can make, as long as you make something that's really charged and alive. Haley, best friend, someone cool, cooler than you. Debt collectors, So in this case, like the debt collectors are the sort of the final straw, it sounds like in the script. And so we'll be picking an opinion that suits the, anyway, I don't have to go through all of these, but so you pick an opinion of the debt collector, like a debt collector, ew, God. You have my strong feeling or opinion is that like, this is repulsive, or this is shocking, or this is like outrageous. And then I anchor that in my own experience. I have a relationship to the apartment that I'm in, like this dump that I'm finally leaving, or like this place that I'm going to miss. Both might make this alive and interesting. Maybe one makes it harder to leave and the other makes it easier to leave, and you play with both. The suitcase where it's like, here's my lifeline, right? Like I got my teddy bear, like stuck under my arm. That's my relationship with it. But those strong feelings or opinions about key things, that's one of the ways you bring something like this to life. Changes, and you can absolutely go through, we could mark like, here are the big changes, right? So if we look just at the second scene, Jess, did you see this? He enters incensed. She comes out of the bedroom with the suitcase. Haley, then boom. So here it is. The writer's even giving you a then. Okay, so also like, here's what's happening. Right, that takes us down here. I don't know what you need, confrontation, right? And there's another little change here. So in this case, the writer's given us, some of those like smaller changes. And if you look at it, you're like, it's too many beats for me. Okay, well then you do, you find one big one, and you're like, build, boom. I don't know what you need, I'm out. Okay, that's another way to shape it, right? That's like, zoop, boom. That's the arc that you want. And otherwise, you're finding those layers. Right, so changes, and then what do you want, right? I think that if you're playing Jess in the scene, you basically have to decide, do you want your boyfriend to get his act together, or do you want him to realize what a loser he is and suffer, or something else? And so knowing what you want, you're like, get me out of here, this is terrible, or if what you want is like, come on, man, like, get it together, Christina, geez. I'm focused on you and trying to make you feel things. And if I'm trying to get Christina to just like get it together, so that she can like get her act together and stop being such a loser. Sorry, Christina, pretending you're Jughead. Then what am I going to try and make Christina do or feel? I'm going to try and make her feel ashamed of herself. I'm going to trying to make her feel bad in ways that make sense to me. And that gives me clues to how I'm going to be in the scene. All right, like I'm going to be openly contemptuous of Christina because I want Christina to fight with me. I want Christina to push back and go, no, you're wrong, I can be better. That's what I'm hoping for. Right? Maybe I'm hoping to get in a big fight and instead he's just out the door. Maybe. And so we play with it. We find something that's alive and interesting. So that progression again, which even if you just remember these top 5 words, you find your own way in. What is the story? What is the style of the show? What are those key relationships, which are strong feelings or opinions about the things that matter? What are the changes in the script? What does your character want? What are and the way they're trying to make the other person do or feel, or what they're trying to make the other person do or feel so they get what they want, right? Story, style, relationships, changes, wants. I've now said it like 9 times. That's got to be some kind of mnemonic device to make it land in your head. Basically, if it started to feel annoying, you're like, okay, I get it. Then like, maybe I've done it exactly right and I'm a genius. Or maybe I just don't have other stuff to talk about. Let's quickly look at Duke's tape, and then we're going to move on to talking about tapes and demo reels. I do get a question about footage for your reel that I want to tack on to the end, but quickly, before we get there, this is the frame, what the camera sees. This is this light reflected in my eyes is an eye light, very important. If somebody looks great on camera, it's probably lighting. You want a neutral background without a whole bunch of books and stuffed animals or random flowery wallpaper or whatever. Just really like a neutral wall is your best bet at this point, right? So lighting, neutral wall, you're horizontal, not vertical. If you're shooting on a phone is fine. You want to be louder than the other person who's talking. But interestingly, one of the piece of feedback I had from my agent, she was like, sometimes the reader is too quiet and it sounds like you're acting by yourself. And I was like, oh, that's such good feedback, right? So I usually have a reader on my laptop and I'm recording on my phone. And I've been careful about like, because I've been teaching this now for a year and a half. I'm like, always make sure the reader's quieter. Okay, so Michael Bean overcorrected, and I made my readers too quiet by turning the volume way down on my laptop. And my agent's like, actually, we need to hear the story for it to be interesting, even if they're seeing 100 of them. It's like, thank you, agent, for giving me your marketing advice. So I think it is really worth, anytime you're doing a recording, just do a 10 or 20-second audio clip and play it back before you record the scene. So you're like, okay, let me get a sense of those levels and listen to the actual tape before I spend half an hour or an hour working. And then I'm like, ooh, yeah, oops, audio problems. It's happened to me. It will probably happen to me again. I'm giving you the reminder so that, maybe you'll hear it. This will be the 9th time you've heard it. And you'll be like, yeah, I get it, Michael Bean. Oh, wow. That means I've internalized this. I'm amazing. Eye line is the imaginary line between your eyes and what you're looking at. And one of the easy ways that, again, came up just from a parent commenting in one of these lessons is to think about, like, does your nose cut off your eyeball at all? Because if it does, then your eye line is probably too far off to one side. So you want to be nice and close to camera so that your eyes are both fully and completely visible. I usually use the corners of my computer screen, or if I'm recording on a phone, I'll use the record button because it's real close to camera, but it's like the camera's on this side, the record button's on this side. It's red. It draws my eyes anyway. It's really easy to look at. Or if I've got a laptop set up, I'll just put it on the same level as the phone, put it just the other side of the camera so that I can look at that person's face and they can still see my eyeballs. I have a quick little clip. These are in the YouTube channel. If you're like, what YouTube channel? Tell me more, Michael Bean. Well, I'm glad you asked. If you go to myfreeactingclass.com and you scroll down and you click here on the video archive, take me there, you'll find both a link to the YouTube channel, and also many, 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 many videos of things that certainly I think are very interesting, and I hope that you would find some of them interesting as well. There are 100 and something, 130, 150 videos up there on the YouTube channel now, which you can scroll through at your leisure or search through to find something that is alive and interesting for you. And the video clips, these were made by a fellow who's doing some work for me named Tom, who had some video skills that I didn't. And you'll see this fellow here, who you may recognize only without a pandemic beard. This is from a couple of years ago when I was still running a studio in Vancouver. And when I really thought that like bright blue was like totally always the way to go. And now I'm like, I still like bright blue. Maybe at some point I will paint this wall bright blue. Right now, tan really works fine for me. Frame is what the camera is seeing. So the typical frame for film TV auditions is what's sometimes called a medium close-up, which is just the top of your head, without very much space above it, down to about your armpit level. So everything down below your armpits typically is not being seen. And if you're ever unsure in an audition and you want to look like you know what you're doing, and you say, hey, where's my frame? Camera operator will just go, throw a hand up and show you where it is. Although these days your audition's likely to be on Zoom, and so you'll just be able to look into your own camera and see what your frame is. So you better make sure that you got that all set up before you log on. Mark, frame. Okay. And I just thought this was fun to show you some little pieces of this. And here's another one on eyeline. One is the imaginary line between your eyes and what you're looking at. In a film and TV audition, it's important to keep your eyeline close to the camera, but never directly at the camera. Because when you look directly at the lens, even if you do it for a split second, then it's so visible, right? The camera sees so much detail, and it breaks the reality of the scene a little bit. I think about how often when you are watching your favorite movies and TV shows, the characters like stop at the room and look directly at you. Yeah, so even the tiniest little flick over directly at the camera lens can be enough to disqualify you, because it's possible that somebody on the producer end of things is going to go, you know what, this actor is great, they're really perfect for this part, but if they get to set and they can't stop looking at the camera lens like that, we lose $100,000. We have to recast, we have to change the scene to cut around them, or use all voiceover. Like it's going to be a huge pain. So I'm not going to take the chance. If they're going to look at the camera lens, let's move on to the next actor. So just that like solid reminder of why it is important to, if you're doing a Zoom meeting, yeah, look right into the lens because you're looking right into people's eyeballs. But if you're recording at home and you're watching the tape back and you're like, oh, there's just one little flick of my eyes to the camera in the first 10 seconds, it's probably not a big deal. It's a big deal. If they're seeing 100 of them, and especially in that first 10, 20 seconds, you are demonstrating to them like, I can't be trusted to do technical things. That's going to be a red flag for producers typically. If you're auditioning for a student film, not so much. They're going to be like, awesome, you gave us a tape and you seem rad, like let's work with you. But if they're going to be paying a bunch of money for it, you and your time, then they're going to want to see that you are doing those technical things just because it makes them feel more settled once they've got you on set. So with that in mind, let me show you the clips of the fabulous Duke Murdoch. And so Duke sent 2 versions of it just so that we could see for reference. He said that the first one was really blurry, and sure was. He also was like, well, it wasn't that bad because they called me back and then I had to do the second one. And so one of the things one of the reasons I wanted to show you this is that reminder that, yeah, anytime I watch a video, some other professional watches a video, there's going to be a bunch of things that they might suggest that might make it better. Technically, with the acting, there's always things that you can think about and work on. And some of them are consistent and technical, and some of them are going to be really based on the individual. Like, here's my preference and what I'd like to see in this. And either way, you can submit a blurry video and they're like, yeah, we can see who you are. You actually are an interesting fit for this character. Do it again, but do it like this. So you can still see neutral background. His eyes, have a light reflected in them. Here it is again, right? Same neutral background. This one's the redo, crisper. There's a nice clear light reflected in his eyes. Duke, your lighting looks better in this tape than it has in the last few tapes. So whatever you are doing to adjust your lighting, I think this is a strong improvement. You're like really moving in the right direction. Still, I would say that your lighting is quite overhead, like your face is shadowed, but at least you've got like a solid highlight here. And if we could get the rest of your face to this level of brightness, right, like you can see that, just like that little bit of shine, which, as a fellow person, who has a bald forehead, I know about, being shiny. Might be a good idea to play with repositioning if you've got that option. And otherwise, your tape setup here is, I think, a strong improvement. So let's watch just the first little bits before it gets too foul-mouthed. Content warning, Duke does say the word dumbass. And there, I've said it first, so you can't be horrified. I mean, you could be horrified, but it's going to happen again twice.
Arnold, wake up, you dumbass. You're not under arrest, idiot.
Okay, clear, right? The character's called Officer Moistman. Obviously there's like an element of comedy, here. He's got a strong feeling or opinion about the person he's talking to. One of the things that I want Duke, for you to really notice about this versus the redo is in this, we're seeing a lot of your eyes, whereas for whatever reason, in the retape, although it is clearer, oops, sorry about that freeze frame, you end up looking at the floor a lot. And that might be just because you chose to, well, you're like, oh, it's real and he's collapsed on the ground, so I'm looking down there. But what ends up happening is we see mostly your eyelids, and not your eyeballs, in the second one. So that's why I had to jump all the way to 11 seconds in, to find eyes.
Arthur, wake up, you dumbass. You're not under arrest, idiot.
Right, so you can see that he's playing with different things. We don't know what notes Duke got between those two, but thanks so much, Duke, for submitting some of your self-tapes, because I really do think it's useful for everybody to be like, look, it doesn't have to be perfect, and there's always stuff we can think about. And you can't think about everything or it's going to melt your brain. Like, you still got to do life. I mean, how much time are you going to spend taping any one individual audition? It's just this matter of consistency and giving it attention and making gradual progress. So again, on the right track. Any questions about any of those notes, Duke? Anything that you want to throw in? Okay, great. So Duke asked, if I don't have recent demo material. So just a quick reminder, demo is something that you would give to your representative so that they could share with casting directors to say, like, look, here's what Duke looks like when he's on TV. So if you don't have footage, your professional footage, where do you get demo footage? And so this is something that there's a range of opinions about. Like, honestly, especially right now with taped auditions, I think you can just use a couple of recent taped auditions. You just look at your actual professional taped auditions, which you probably put time and energy into making look pretty, and you just say, well, here's a couple of the YouTube links, or I'm going to like stitch together a couple of those. And I've seen that be effective. I've seen that mostly be effective for younger actors, where there's less expectation that they might have professional demo material, but I think it beats nothing. To just send them the YouTube links like, hey, here's Christina doing 2 different taped auditions for really different characters that both showcase her well. So, after you've seen this character where she's like really, full of sass, if you want to see her be like all shattered and emotional, or if you want to see her be like totally a goof, here's 2 other auditions where she had to do those 2 things. And so you get to showcase yourself in that way. Now, in Los Angeles, at least for a while, there were people charging a lot of money to make demo material for people. So to basically set up like it was a professional film shoot, and you could spend thousands of dollars having like a crew and equipment and shooting footage for your demo. And you know what? It still doesn't look professional. It's still like, it looks closer. It's like, oh, they were really in a place. They must have spent a bunch of money getting this. That's my impression anytime I've seen one of those footage. Like, wow, this is really close to the real thing. It's still practice. It's not like you're going to fool them. You just literally do not have the budget to fool them. And so the very best thing you can do for demo material, is clips of you in real TV shows and movies, even if they're 3 seconds long, because that says somebody else took a risk and paid me and it didn't suck, right? And that's what that demo footage is. It's not like, here's me doing my Shakespearean monologue, so you can see how important it is to me to be a thespian. It's like, look, I am lower risk because somebody else paid me and I didn't fail completely. And that's what producers generally want to see. Now, past that, are they sometimes going to want to see, like, what are your acting chops, or what is some of your range? Yeah, so send them something from class, send them something that you taped for an audition. So basically everything that's not professional material, in my opinion, is lumped together as like, oh, he's got some professional clips, and then he's got some other stuff. And so don't obsess too much about what that other stuff is my advice. Look for a couple of short clips that showcase you from stuff within the last couple of years, or even stuff that's a little bit older where you still look like you. For instance, I can't use any of this stuff, like the clip that I showed you that has me, beardless, because I don't want them to be like, wow, I really like that guy. Who's the bearded guy who we saw in the other thing? As strange as it is, those shifts in appearance. Like, let's say Christina, I don't know, got like a side shave, and was like, yeah, I've decided to just go just embrace the like punk style. And then she couldn't use any of her footage from where she's got her current haircut, because she couldn't use it. I mean, if that's all she had, would it be better than nothing? If they were like, send us some footage? Yeah, probably better than nothing. But ideally she'd get something that looked like her and looked good, and showcased the acting they wanted. So that's the answer to Duke's question about demo material. All right, efficiency, we did the things. I'm going to upload this to YouTube. Thank you for joining me for today's lesson. My name is Michael Bean. These happen every Monday, or at least they are currently happening every Monday, from 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Please join us when you can, and check out the YouTube channel if you want to watch more of the videos from the past. All right, bye everyone.